Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while. As some of you may have seen, I've been getting back into a little bit of pageant interviewing. And one of the things that I get asked often is about pageant interview and how obviously to do better at it. It's an area that a lot of you struggle with. For I think probably over half of you, it's your let's say your least favorite or perhaps your most feared component. And one of the things that kind of irks me in the pageant industry is this proliferation of so called pageant experts or coaches. And one of the things that really bugs me with them is when you do well, when their client does well, they like to take credit for it. I've seen examples of coaches who presumably are getting paid and then still insisting that the client tags them in all of their posts. And so I wanted to give you some ideas as to how you could improve your pageant interview performance. And these ideas are not ideas that I've heard any other interview coach talking about. None. Now, that's not to say that none of them have, it's just to say I haven't seen it. And obviously, I've been around the pageant space for a while now. And I will tell you this, the good news is this won't cost you a cent. I'm not saying you have to come to me. I'm not saying there's a particular coach who does it right and you have to go to them. This isn't going to cost you a dime, assuming you have a mobile phone, which almost certainly you do. Now, let me start this off with a story. And this is going to be important because it will show you that this is not just something, it's not just a theory in my head. I've used this myself, and it's not even in the interview area. It's in an area where this would be much more complicated. So going back, God, it would have been close to 2 decades ago now. I always loved tennis growing up. I wasn't any good at it. It was the one sport that just appealed to me. Now, there are lots of reasons for that. I won't go into all of them here. But for example, it's an individual sport. There's a lot of nuance to it. So it's kind of quite easy to get into if you're reasonably coordinated. But it's impossible to master. There's always something that you could be improving at. I love the fact that it was an individual sport, as I think I said already. And also, it's not a timed sport. Yeah. So, tennis, you don't go and say, okay, let's play a match, and whoever has the most points at the end of an hour or whatever it is, they're the winner. No, tennis is always you play until you win or lose, which means it's a highly mental game because you could be on the verge of winning. And then what happens sometimes? Choke. Right now, if you don't know what that means, it means you really should be winning now, because maybe if you don't know tennis scoring, maybe this will be meaningless to you. But let's say you're 5 love up, you know, you're 40 love up and you're serving, you have triple match point. At this point, you really should win. But there are some very famous examples of professional athletes who have found a way to lose from that position. I guess the other way you could look at it is there are many examples of famous athletes who have found a way to win when down like that. And so, for many reasons, I love tennis. But as I said, I wasn't any good at it. Coming from, let's say, a pretty traditional Asian family, if you know anything about that, sport is not high. I was going to say it's not high on the priority list. I'd say more accurately, it's not on the priority list. It's by far academics, then maybe music, then maybe art and sport, maybe even art, because music is art, right? So sports kind of, it's way, way, way down on the ladder, if at all. And so tennis was the one sport that I enjoyed. Wasn't particularly good at it. I only got to play it maybe once a week. This was with my dad and his friends. Now, fast forward to my early 20s. Now, I was, let's say, let go from my job and the forced retirement, you might call it. And this was because I had a fundamental disagreement with management. Namely, I liked people who were competent and they didn't. Let's leave it at that. But I decided to go back into university to study, of all things, music business. Some of you may have heard this story before, but I wanted to be basically sorry for the noise, a talent agent for musicians. So, like, you got your Taylor Swift, and there's someone who handles all the business for her. She's probably not going back in front of Excel spreadsheets after she's done her concert and working out her ticket takings for the night. And so you need someone to negotiate for you on your behalf, make sure all the laws are followed, etc., etc., etc. Now, in Australia at least, going back for those post-grad degrees or post-grad certifications is often quite expensive. I think we're quite lucky here that the undergrad stuff is a lot cheaper than places such as America, for example. But the postgrad stuff is a significant investment, as far as I've seen anyway. And so I needed a way to pay for it, and I just been let go, let go, right? Forced retirement, as I said. And so I was thinking, okay, what's a way that I could earn some part-time income? Because I'm going to have to be studying. I can't probably take on a 9 to 5 because I needed to be there in the city studying. It wasn't something you could do by distance. And so this idea came into my head. I randomly took because I wanted, at that point, I was getting into my tennis. And so I took a tennis camp, an adult tennis camp. It's like a training camp, but not nearly as grueling as it sounds. And I went to a local tennis club, and it was about maybe 2 or 3 days. And one of the things they did, this is what maybe started this whole journey, they took a video of me hitting. Now, if you've ever seen a video of yourself doing something for the first time and you've never seen yourself before, almost everyone is shocked. Not in a good way, by the way. They're shocked by what they see, what they hear. They look at it and go, oh my God, do I really look like that? Do I really sound like that? Sad answer is yes, the camera doesn't lie. But that was one of the things we got back from this tennis camp was a video of us playing. That was very much confirmation, let's put it, that I really am not very good at tennis. I have seen professional tennis players playing, and yeah, I don't look like that. I said I look like a flea hitting tic tacs. It just wasn't good. It was terrible. But I thought, well, I love tennis, and I've just gone to this local tennis club. I enjoyed myself. I like the way they do things. Maybe I could become a tennis coach. I don't know how that thinking process worked out. I had no experience with tennis, but I thought I could become a tennis coach. Who knows why? Maybe at this point I should say I have been diagnosed with ADHD. Maybe that has something to do with it. Anyway, so long story short, I did end up getting a position as a very entry-level tennis coach because obviously I wasn't good enough to coach anyone more advanced. But it was at that point that I decided I want to take tennis, in inverted commas, seriously. And the tennis club had things that made that possible. Now, I didn't have the funds at that point to take on a private tennis coach. I didn't want to do group coaching. I find that in tennis, at least, very ineffective because everyone's at a different level. And even if you're at the same level, there's no guarantee that you want to work on the same things. So if I was going to go with coaching, it would have been private, but that was too expensive. Luckily, now that I was working there, I had access to a ball machine. Now, if you don't know, a ball machine literally is a big machine with counter-rotating wheels, and it throws a ball at you. It's one of the big things with tennis training that it's kind of a logistical problem is you need someone to hit with you. And if you're no good, like I was, you need someone who's very patient. Because if they're good, they're not going to be very interested in hitting with you, and if they're really bad, then you don't get to hit any balls. You spend the entire time just picking up the balls. So I decided, okay, I want to get good, can't afford a private coach, don't want to do group coaching. Here's what I'll do. I'll teach myself. Now, I want you to get that. One of the reasons that I want you to really think about that is coaches, professional tennis coaches, would never tell you that you can teach yourself tennis. Think about it. You would need someone to hit the ball to you. You would need someone to correct you. You'd need the feedback, and you need time on the court. It's going to take a long time. Also, if you have no talent as a kid or you haven't really played tennis growing up, you're too old, it's too late to learn, etc., etc., etc. Now, I solved all those issues. So rather than needing a person on the other side, I had access to the ball machine. Luckily, working as a coach now, I had access to the courts for free as long as no one else needed them, no other clients needed them. But the one thing that I want to impress upon you is, how am I going to know whether what I'm doing is good or not? Now, the easy answer in this case, look at a professional player. And by the way, don't just look at an average professional player. Look at the best who have ever played the game and learn and study how they do what they do, with the belief, mind you, that I may never be as good as them, but if I do what they do to the best of my abilities and understand why they're doing what they do, I'm going to get as good as I possibly could. At least I'm going to be probably a lot further along than simply having a coach. This is a thing in tennis coaching. I don't know about other situations where they hit a ball to you, you hit the ball back, and they say one thing. Then they feed you another ball, then you hit a ball, and then they say another thing, and then they say another thing. So you end up after a half hour or 1 hour session with 10 billion things that they've said, none of which are connected, and you haven't improved at all, if you're honest, right? I mean, you've spent time on court, so that's something, but you don't have any concrete plan forward. You haven't seen what you look like, by the way. So, for example, if I tell you you need to follow through more, if I say that to 6 students, 10 students, that's going to mean 10 different things to 10 different students. So, to get around that, I studied professional players. Now, I was lucky because at that club, they had, back in those days, the internet was only just kind of beginning. It might not even have existed. It gives you an idea how long ago this was. But they had these Japanese tennis magazines. And the Japanese are crazy about tennis, by the way. And in these tennis magazines, you would have like almost frame by frame, not quite, but a frame by frame sort of strip, a comic strip of someone hitting a shot. I remember Roger Federer was just starting to come into his greatness then, so there were shots of, Federer hitting his forehand, the preparation, the contact, the follow through, all that stuff. And so I was like, okay, I've solved one problem. I know how the greatest in the world do what they do. So I'm not guessing anymore. I'm not going, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this. I can look at it and go, well, he did that or she did that. So let's try that and try at least to understand it. So that was problem number one. I know what to do. Number two, how am I going to know what I'm doing? Now, this is the part where it's so much easier in this day and age. You have a phone. One of the things that a phone has is a camera. So you can easily get a tripod, get a Steadicam, attach it to the fence. You can easily record yourself doing practically anything in this day and age. Back then, I had to get a video camera. I also had to get expensive, fancy software for my laptop. By the way, I had to get a laptop to replay the shot that I had just hit. And by the way, setting all this up cost thousands of dollars. Basically spent all the money I earned coaching in my own fledgling tennis career. But what's the point here? Well, I had the ball machine, so I didn't need anyone else. I had the court space. I knew what I should be trying to do, what the best in the world do. Not a coach telling me what they think. Someone who's never played professionally. I'm looking at the best in the world, and now I'm looking at myself. I'm watching videos back of myself hitting and just comparing. Okay, this is what I do. This is what the best in the world do. And I would happily spend hours upon hours on the court working on the tiniest, slightest nuance. And by the way, sometimes those deceptively simple nuances make an absolutely massive difference to your game. And sometimes it's the things that no one would expect. So, what happened? Well, probably a few months later, guess what? I had improved out of sight. I had improved way beyond what I could have done with any sort of coaching, whether it be group coaching or private coaching. By the way, I was also super invested in my improvement, and also I had a really, really good understanding as to what works and what doesn't, because I had tried everything. Because I had just had these freeze frames of these players playing, but I didn't know exactly what to look for. I didn't have that eye that had that that experience, right? I could look at it and like you could look at someone doing anything and go, okay, how are they able to do it so well? I don't know. Maybe it's a wrist position, maybe it's a head position, maybe it's their footwork. Who knows? But I had been in the meat grinder, so to speak. I'd been at the coalface. I'd spent all those hours. Again, the ADHD. Obviously, this was feeding into my dopamine. But I'd spent the hours learning what worked for someone who had no innate talent and no athletic gift. I was never an athlete growing up. We've already discussed that. And so, guess what? That also made me an amazing coach because I could take someone who had no innate ability, let's say, and at least give them some ideas as to how to improve that really worked based on my practical experience. Whereas a lot of the other coaches who I was working with, they were only interested in working with, like, not pro players, we didn't have those there, but just under that level, like really advanced players. Because obviously it's more fun to hit with someone who can hit the ball back rather than when you hit the ball back, they get smacked in the face by it. But, and look, if you want to play, that's obviously more fun. But as a coach, I always thought it was a better challenge to take someone who had no idea what they were doing and to get them to the point where they were excited. It didn't matter the amount of improvement, but they were excited to be able to start doing something like I did that they really had no idea they could actually do. And so when you're beginning, that's actually a lot easier because you might go, I could never play tennis. Yeah, every time the ball comes to me, I swing and miss. So for you, even making regular contact with the ball could be a massive encouragement. And I knew how to do that because I coached myself, looking at the best players in the world, watching myself playing, and then worked out what works and what doesn't. Now, fast forward, maybe a few years later, I became head coach now of a high school near here, an all-girls high school that had a competitive team, a competitive state team. And the first day that I was working there, I was hitting with some of the girls, and one of the other head coaches that was working, well, one of the other coaches that was working there, who had been around a lot of competitive tennis growing up, she saw me play, and then she just casually asked, "Oh, what comps did you do growing up? Like, which sort of tournaments have you played?" Now that was interesting to me because there was that underlying assumption that to get as good as I had gotten, I must have been playing competitive tennis, all my life, basically. And so that was a really interesting moment when I had sort of cheated in a way. No coaching. I did have a tennis coach once, I think, but for all 5 or 10 lessons, and I don't remember anything except I played him once and I lost 6 love. That was terrible. um, it was interesting because coaches, the common wisdom would be you can't teach yourself tennis. You don't know what to look for, who is going to hit the ball to you, etc., etc., etc. And I had proven that all wrong. Now, when it comes to your interview practice for pageants, I'm imagining now, if you're still with me, you can probably see where I'm going with this. You do not need a coach. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, I'll give you an example. The students that I most enjoyed working with, and frankly, the students that I saw the most improvement with, were not the ones who were gifted, not the ones who were talented. Hard working was definitely helpful, obviously. But so often, when I had a student come on court, I would always start the lesson, pretty much always start the lesson with, what do you want to work on today? I didn't want to say, okay, let's work on your forehand. Maybe you don't want to work on that. Maybe something else has gone really badly wrong. Or maybe you played a tournament on the weekend since I saw you last. So I would ask, how did the tournament go? I'm not interested in win or lose as much as, okay, what do we need to work on now? So it gives you feedback. Win or lose gives you feedback as to what do I need to improve. Do you know how often, like 90% of the time, the answer I would get back would be, I don't know, or, which is a very similar answer, everything. And that just boggled my mind because how could you spend all this time playing competitive tennis, something that I didn't have the privilege of doing when I was a kid, come away from it and, let's say, very often lose and have no idea what you need to improve on? I couldn't fathom that. And also, by the way, when you say you need to work on everything, it's the same thing. What it shows is a lack of awareness as to what you need to improve. And frankly also shows a lack of interest. And so I got really frustrated when people would come to me for coaching, when they would pay for coaching. And private coaching is not cheap. They would pay for private coaching, but they would show up and they would expect me to sort of wave a magic wand and somehow make them better. It got to the point where I told my students, if I ask you what do you need to work on, and you say either I don't know or you say everything, you're now going to run laps. That might sound harsh. I was working mainly with teenagers, but it's amazing how motivating the thought of running a couple of laps around the tennis court as punishment is for teenagers. So they very quickly learned, hang on, Adrian's asking me this. Let me actually think as to what I need to work on. And so what I'm saying is, if you don't care about interview prep and you just want to hand it off to someone else because that's how you think it's handled, it's like, oh yeah, I've handled interview coaching, I've handled my pageant interview, I've hired the best coach. Well, good for you. Guess what? That interview coach can't do the interview for you. I don't know how good they are. Maybe you saw testimonials. A lot of the testimonials, frankly, can't be trusted or they're manufactured. But hey, you do you. However, if you are seriously interested in being the best that you can be, much like me when I was learning tennis, that's why I told that whole story. If you really, really want to get the best you can, then what are you going to do? You're going to get a question. We're going to make the practice as real as we can, by the way. You're going to hear a question. You're not going to read it, because if you don't read the pageant interview question in your interview, do you? You get someone who tells you or asks you the question. So if I remember, what I'll put below is a link to a video I did where I'm just reading out 175 pageant questions. Just go to that video, go anywhere in that video, hear the first full question, and then that's the beginning. Okay, so you've heard a question. You've got 175. It'll take you a while to work through those. Hear the question, and you're going to answer it out loud, not in your head. I don't understand why people go, yeah, I practiced interview. I read a question and I answered it in my head. That'd be like me preparing for Wimbledon by thinking about playing tennis. I mean, it's better than nothing. And there is something to be said about the power of visualization, but give me a break. You, you need to actually go and do it. And the closer you can get, the closer you can make your practice to the real thing, by the way, the more effective it is. And I'm not just talking about, okay, maybe we should actually practice tennis, but can you make the practice have a bit of pressure? Because so many people are great when there's no pressure, and then under pressure they buckle. We talked about choking already. So I want you to answer the question out loud, and I need you to video it. And then what are you going to do? Like me on the tennis court, you're going to watch it back. You're going to analyze, not analyze. I don't want you to get anal about everything that's wrong, but I want you to analyze yourself. Look at yourself. You probably, I don't know, 90% of you, I bet you haven't heard yourself answering an interview question. So watch it back straight away, by the way. Please do not do 10 questions and then go back. Why? It's because you will have forgotten what you were thinking and doing when you answered the first question by the time you got to the 10th. And this was the same thing with me in tennis. Because I really was invested in getting better, I had the discipline to hit a shot. I could remember what I was working on in that shot. I was trying to do whatever it was, right? Keep my head still, follow through in a certain way. And then I could watch the evidence back straight away and go, okay, that worked, that didn't work. And then I would remember if it was effective, what worked, I'm going to keep doing it. And then I would get into the habit of repetition, because practice does make perfect if the practice is quality. Otherwise, practice just makes permanent. So you can very easily, if you don't practice properly, make something bad or make a flaw permanent, which is the opposite of what we want to do. But that's the whole enchilada. Now, the only missing component to this is, well, Adrian, how do I know? Because I had, for example, in the tennis situation, I had the pro players in that Japanese tennis magazine, remember? So I knew what the best in the world did. So you go, okay, well, Adrian, how do I know what I should be saying? Well, it's amazing how many times, and I say this with all the love in the world, how many times people want to come up with excuses before they've even tried, or how often they're not thinking. Let me put it to you this way. When you watch someone, whether it's on TV, YouTube, a podcast, or pageant, you watch someone give an interview answer, don't you kind of know whether that answer is good or not? right? You may not know all the nuance. When I was looking at the pro tennis players at the beginning, I certainly didn't know which details to pay attention to and which ones to ignore. But I mean, you do it a bit, you get better at it, right? But don't you kind of know when someone is talking well and presenting well versus when they're not? You inherently know, like, it's not as complicated as tennis. If you watch someone hit a tennis ball and it goes 100 miles an hour, you may have no idea how they do that. But when someone is speaking well and presenting well and answering with confidence, you probably can look at that and go, yeah, that's a good one. That's a bad one. This one's a really great one. So let me mimic them. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to find examples of people who answer interview questions well. You're going to look at it and go, okay, that's someone who is world class, and get someone who's okay. So, a lot of interview coaches will brag about how good they are at interview. Eh, you know, if you can model anyone in the world, and by the way, with social media and YouTube, now you really can model anyone in the world. Why would you model someone who's only okay? So find someone who's the best at answering interview questions. It doesn't have to be a pageant contestant, by the way. It could be a politician, it could be an actress, it could be an activist, whoever it is. So now we've got the whole enchilada. You are going to get someone to read you questions. If you don't have that, remember, find a way around it. Like, I didn't have someone to hit me tennis balls, I found the ball machine. Go to that video that I should have linked below. So I'm putting this in my head to remind myself. Get a question from there. You'll have it read out to you, hear it, and then answer the question and video your response. Now, when you video your response, I want you to video your entire body. I want you to be sitting, if you would be sitting in the actual interview to answer the question. Don't stand up, because that's different. And if you want to go that extra mile, even wear what you're going to be wearing when you answer. Remember, we want to make the practice as close to the real thing as possible. Even better, we can make the practice tougher in some way by applying even more pressure or whatever it is, because then the real thing will seem easy by comparison. But basically, you're going to video whole body and you're going to make it as close to the real thing as possible. Why whole body? Because when you answer a question, guess what? The judges don't just see your face, they see your whole body. Now, you may notice, for example, one of the big things is hands. You might be too handsy, or you might be one of those people who just sits on their hands because you know you're too handsy. But then you look weird, because why are you sitting on your hands? Or you're strangling your hands, like holding your hands together, praying to God that you don't start the windmill thing going on. But also, why video it? Is because, guess what? You know that old saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it? Because when you answer a question in your head, you have no idea what your tonality is like. Do you go up at the end of every sentence? Do you have a monotone voice and sound bored out of your brain? Do you speak really slowly? Or do you speak so quickly no one ever knows what you're talking about? So these are all the things I guarantee you. You watch one video, you go, oh my God, that's probably the first thing to do. And then secondly, this is what I do with my clients. Okay, just list the things that you feel you need to improve. Not me, you. Because you know better than anyone else what you want to sound like. What I want to sound like is going to be different to what you want to sound like. And you should do you, not do me. Of course, you can take influences. I'm not saying you shouldn't, take inspiration, but look at it yourself, okay? One question, video, analyze, jot down notes or make mental notes, and then do another question. Improve, iterate, and I will guarantee you, with no expenditure of money, if you do that for half an hour, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, God forbid you do it every night, you will improve so far out of your mind, you'll be astonished. Now, don't tell anyone how you did it. Okay? Just say, yeah, I love interviews. So I was just born like this. I woke up like this. But I will guarantee you that you will improve so much further past than if you just got a coach. And as again, this is not theoretical. This is what happened with tennis. And tennis is a lot harder to learn by yourself than interview, which is you need to speak and think. Right? There's no logistical issues like I need someone to throw me a ball. I need a tennis court. You can do this anywhere. Okay. Now, is this to say all coaching is rubbish? Absolutely not. But to go back to my story, which I forgot to finish, the student, I've already told you the students that I hated coaching were the ones who you would turn up and go, what do you want to work on? I don't know. But who were the best students to work with? The ones who, when I asked them, what do you want to work on? They would say, well, I was leading, 5-4, 40-15, I was serving, but my second serve, I got a bit tight. And the second serve, I was getting them in, but they were dropping short. And the person who felt they had nothing else to lose, they attacked. They broke my serve, and then I ended up losing the set. Now you're going, Adrian, what does this mean? The people who are self-aware are the ones who will make the most improvement with a quality coach. I'm going to say that again. The students who are most self-aware will make the most progress with a quality coach. As in, you come to me, I want you. Now, I might spend the first session with you just outlining the practice strategy that I've given you. But after that, I am going to ask you, what do you need to work on? What have you noticed? And the answer better not be, I don't know, or everything. So you need to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you're working on, and how you want to sound. Because guess what? Again, you might be preparing for a TED talk or a job interview, not just a pageant interview. And in each of those situations, your strategy for how to interview well could very well be different. Now, does this all make sense, right? So, coaching has its place, but it's only really going to be better than what I just proposed to you. And again, by the way, what I propose to you doesn't cost anything if you have a phone. Interview coaching does cost quite a lot. Not always worth it, by the way. But if you go to a coach, a quality coach, and you say, okay, I've done this practice. I notice that my hands do this, or I'm too monotone. I speak too quickly. I have problems, formulating my thoughts. I have all these. This is a very common problem, by the way. Too many thoughts and trying to encapsulate them in a 30-second or 1-minute answer is really difficult. Or maybe you struggle on the easy questions. Tell me a bit about yourself. And people go, oh my God, I have so much to do. I don't know where to answer that, how to answer that. Now you go to a coach. Now they're a quality coach. They can use their expertise to help you. So if you came to me as a tennis student and you said, I tried all these things, I noticed that I'm having this issue with my backhand. Because I have the lived experience of teaching myself how to play tennis to a high standard with no innate talent, I'm now going to be able to help you because I have that coaching ability. And this is another thing that irks me. It doesn't matter. Coaches love to brag about their performance, right? Oh, you should come to me because I used to be a Miss Universe. Big deal. Big effing deal. That's one aspect. But can you actually coach? That is a completely different question. If you go to someone, by the way, the best example of this is probably maths teachers or let's say computer programmers. And you go to them, they're really good at what they do, right? Then you say, I don't understand what's going on. Can you explain this to me? And then they explain something that you don't know in terms of reference to something else that you also don't know. Also, this whole programming code here, what it is because you're using an array here and you've extended the array. You want to need this index and you need to iterate. By the way, it's like, no, 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 no. Explain this to me like you're explaining soup, right? Explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So don't buy into I used to be Miss Universe, or even won Best in Interview. That's great. That's one facet that is important. They need to know what they're doing. Number two, can they coach? Now, learning how to coach is a completely different skill set. What made me good as a coach, and that's what the students said, by the way, I'm not just delusional in my head. The students loved the way I coached, and I was very effective. The parents loved it. What made me good as a coach, guess what? Was my own journey. Teaching myself with no innate talent, I got to know what works. So, a coach, again, you should be doing your own practice first. That will help you build the self-awareness. Now, when you reach a point where you go, okay, I have this issue, but I don't know how to fix it, or I want that extra 5%, that's when you should bring on a coach, a quality coach. How do you know a quality coach? Number one, they know what they're doing. So yeah, winning best in interview could be a good thing for an interview coach. Number two, do they know how to coach? This is something that's a bit harder to tell because a coaching qualification often is meaningless, but it's something to bear in mind. Okay, and when you go and have a lesson with them, you'll be able to work out whether they're good at teaching or not. And the third thing, there are three things here, by the way. It's just Do you have good rapport with the coach? So, there are some coaches that you will just get along well with, and there's some ones that just, that rapport is not there. And it's always better, I think, if you have a good rapport with a coach. That's very often because you have shared beliefs or values or shared experiences. But that's something to bear in mind. You want, obviously, a coach that you can get along with. So, those three things when it comes time to take on a coach after you've done everything else I've said, which is probably, if I'm being honest, saved you somewhere easily in the hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands of dollars. I guarantee you, if you've never done this before, even if you've had interview experience or interview coaching, and you practice the way that I just laid out, you will be staggered by the things that you notice that no coach ever would, because it's you. We're all our worst critics. Well, be that as it may, this is how you turn it to your advantage. I told this to a client of mine, and I messaged her. I said, "What did you notice?" Like that tennis example, I said, "What do you want to work on?" And I thought it'd be one, one or two things. I think there was a list of 10 things. they're quite not detailed, but each one is quite like on point. Each one's a separate thing, but you go, okay, yeah, maybe we should work on that. And then she jokingly said, certainly hope it was joking, said self-loathing is the key to improvement, which, I understand because you do need that critical eye. We all are our worst critics. I'm just saying, let's admit that, try and control that, but also let's use it to our advantage. So watch yourself doing this and go, okay, this is what I need to improve. Maybe you don't notice 10 things, maybe you only notice one thing. But hey, that's okay too, because your journey of improvement with your interview should be individual to you. You're different to anyone else who's talking, so you're going to have your own issues that you want to work through. So let me leave it there. I think this all makes sense, but if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, at least on Spotify, I believe there is an ability to leave a comment under the Spotify podcast as well. But you can always send me a message or an email, the Pageant Project at the Pageant Project, or info at the pageantproject.com if you want to send an email. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And yeah, if you do want coaching, obviously I'm happy to help. But as I said, I really like working with people who show the initiative to go and work on themselves. I really have an issue with people who think they can outsource their excellence. No, no. Hiring a personal trainer doesn't mean you're in shape. It just means you hired a personal trainer and maybe spent a bunch of money. You still need to do the work. Yeah, that's why my tennis journey, me being able to play tennis, that's why I was able to do it. If I had hired simply a coach, even if I hired the best coach in the world, I still wouldn't be, like I said, I wouldn't be able to play tennis, but I would be nowhere near as good as I am now. And more importantly, from a coaching perspective, I would have no idea what works. Very often you ask these best people in the world, how do you do that? They're just like, well, I don't know, I just do it. That's why they're called talented, or that's why they're sometimes, the best in the world at what they do. So let me leave it there. Questions, comments, as I said, let me know. And sure, if you hear this and you go, yeah, I jive with that, and I want to book in with this crazy Australian, go ahead and do that. I'll speak to you soon.